The Andy Pollin Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got, figuring they're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
Boy, it doesn't take much for the NFL to take center stage again. Hold the Super Bowl, step aside for a couple of weeks for the Olympics, and now they're controlling the news again. For what? For the Underwear Olympics, which don't even start until tomorrow. They don't start timing and weighing these guys until tomorrow, and they go through the weekend on that. But there is news coming out of the NFL Combine in Indianapolis, as there is every year, and it's the opportunity for us to hear from the general manager of the Commanders and the coach of the Commanders. Not like they couldn't do it here, but they got to schlep everybody to Indianapolis for that. So we'll get to the comments of Adam Peters and Dan Quinn yesterday regarding the roster and a couple of old-timers in particular. Zach Ertz, one of them, Bobby Wagner, the other. It's been confirmed by Ertz that he's going to play another year, whether it's here or someplace else, and there are reports that Wagner would like to play a 15th year. And I don't think it's out of the question that both of them come back, but I'm really not sure about the role for Bobby Wagner, who's on the field all the time. I think if you bring him back for a 15th year, what we saw during the season with them isolating on backs and not being able to keep up, I just don't know if he can be an every down linebacker anymore. But we'll get to what they said. Also, Reggie Miller had some interesting things to say about the All-Star game. He helped broadcast it for NBC and talked to Dan Patrick about it yesterday, so we'll get to that. And game recognizing games. Scott Van Pelt on what he said about the performance of Mike Tirico this month, both at the Super Bowl and at the Olympics, says hey, maybe he has taken his place as the best to do it. I don't think it's an overstatement to say that. I don't think we've ever seen anything like what we've seen Mike Tirico do this month. Hopefully he's going to get a little bit of time off, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's right back at it doing basketball games for NBC. I guess he doesn't do baseball, so there is a little bit of a summer break for Mike. But, wow, what a couple of 3-4 weeks that he had doing both the Super Bowl and the Olympics. Just absolutely spectacular at that. Anyway, so yeah, it came out yesterday morning. There were some pictures that Zach Ertz posted of him working out. He does not have a knee brace on the torn ACL that he suffered in early December. So what are we, 2 months out from that? And that he is confirming that he wants to play for a 14th year. The question is, at the age of 35, coming off a very serious injury for a team that's, looking to get younger. There's no secret about that. They were the oldest team in the league last year. They were the most injured team in the league last year, and I don't think that was a coincidence. And they would like to find some younger players and to move on. But, Zach Ertz has played very, very well with Jaden Daniels, and even before he got hurt last year, I think these stats might surprise you. He caught 50 passes last year for over 500 yards and 4 touchdowns. And he has been, over the course of the 2 years for Daniels, a great safety valve. And that's one of the things that you heard when they drafted Jaden Daniels was they have to find him a route-running tight end who he can depend on for checkdowns. If something's not there, he's got somebody dependable who's running the right route and can get the ball to him, and that's exactly what has happened. So I don't think he's going to come back, but as Adam Peters said yesterday to the media in Indianapolis, he's not ruling it out.
It's hard to really quantify how good he is, and I think, his ability to get open and be a great, target on a third down or any passing down, being a quarterback-friendly person and getting the confidence of whatever quarterback he's playing with is something that's you can't really see on a 40 time or anything like that. He's always open. He makes big plays, and he's an incredible guy in the locker room. So that was a big loss when he went down. We'll keep the door open for him for sure. We've had a lot of talks with him personally and his agent in terms of just keeping that door open and seeing how he progresses with his injury. But you can't count on anything, right? So we have 4 guys under contract, I think, right now, and we'll look to kind of fill his role with a combination of those guys. But still, we have some guys we really have a lot of confidence in there. John Bates has another level to go as a pass catcher. Ben's going to have a really good opportunity in this offense to show his versatility. Colson's a really athletic guy who can help in the passing game, and Lawrence Cager, we're really excited about him and his ability to help in the pass game. So with that group, we feel really good, but we wouldn't be opposed to adding another one.
Okay, so it's possible he comes back. I'm surprised about this. I think most people were who were there yesterday talking to Peters, asked about Marshawn Lattimore, who has had trouble on the field with injuries and off the field with a recent arrest with a gun in his car. He would save them $18.5 million under the cap if they release him, and they still have time before they have to make that decision. But Peters didn't rule out bringing him back. Now that could be a CYA situation that. Among the moves that Peters has made, that probably is his worst one. Kind of a go for it, not this past season, but the year before, where they traded picks at the deadline, and he's basically given them nothing. He hasn't played that well, and he hasn't been able to stay healthy. Hasn't been able to stay on the field. Now this off the field trouble, it seemed to be a no-brainer. He's going to be released, but Peters wouldn't commit on that. He wouldn't say necessarily about Bobby Wagner. In terms of and Wagner has not said whether he wants to come back or not. It's not like Ertz, who's definitely saying, I want to play. Wagner has not said whether he wants to play a 15th year, but there's a report that he does want to play. And I kind of read something into this. This was Dan Quinn yesterday, and he loves Wagner. They go back a long way. They worked together when they won a Super Bowl as Quinn was the defensive coordinator and Wagner was a star linebacker with the Seahawks. And there's a kind of a kinship there that works from the sideline to the field. Wagner is something of a coach on the field, but clearly he's lost a step. He's still a great leader in the locker room. They don't want to lose that. But whenever you hear somebody say, I love so-and-so, that is not necessarily an endorsement. That's more like God bless him, bless his heart. If he were to say, if Bobby Wagner wants to play, we're definitely going to be interested in bringing him back. I don't know if we can work it out, but yes, I would love to have Bobby Wagner back on the field for a third year in Washington. I'd love that. This was Quinn kind of non-answering the question about the possible return of Wagner to Washington.
We love Wags, and one of my favorite ones this year was just getting a chance to visit with him. After him winning the Walter Payton Man of the Year, like so proud. And so we haven't got into the specifics of what's ahead and where we're at with that yet. And so that'll be in the days and weeks ahead.
Yeah, no answer on that. We love Wags. yeah. We love Wags. Not exactly 100%. If that guy wants to play, I know he can still play. No, we didn't get that. Now, maybe that's part of negotiation, too. Maybe you don't say something like that. This is kind of a surprise because the cap number's high. It's I believe, close to about $20 million for Daron Payne in his final year of his contract. And normally you work out a deal where you extend it to free up some more cap room. And if you need to release him at the end of camp, you could do that, make some more tradable. They're going to have Payne, and there's a feeling now, let's say, that the defensive line has become more important in the middle. Rather, the edge rushers are still huge. I mean, if you can get yourself one of those guys, if somehow Crosby gets freed up with the Raiders and you can land him, that's a huge deal. But defensive line has become more and more important on the defense, the way the game is played, because the quarterbacks are getting the ball out so quickly. That was a very interesting conversation that I think it was with Kurt Warner last week or the week before. But, yeah, that's why in a normal year you might see Daron Payne either released or traded or some type of deal that he's not going to be back because he's already on his second contract, and very, very unusual for a defensive lineman to get a third contract in today's game. And Peters is very definitive on Payne. he says absolutely there will be no contract extension going into this year.
We haven't begun that, and I don't think we're going to explore that at this time. Really excited to have Duran with us next year, and we can probably address that at a later time, maybe after the year. But and I've talked with his agent about that. What I can say is I got a ton of respect for Duran. His toughness, his physicality, his leadership, his ability to play and be available all the time. And there's nobody tougher than him. And I think he's going to really have a chance to flourish in this new defense, where we'll be a little bit more multiple and allow him to move around a little bit. But right now, I think Laramie at this point is the only one we're talking to.
Yeah, Laramie Tunsil, that is the focus, and nobody wants this to turn into a Terry McLaurin situation. Remember, this time last year, all you're hearing out of Adam Peters, oh, yeah, we love Terry McLaurin. Yeah, oh, yeah, but we'll get things done. And reportedly what happened was Terry and his agent shot for the moon. They didn't really recognize what his value is. They ultimately signed for pretty much what the Commanders wanted to sign him for. He missed all of training camp, didn't participate in a single training camp practice. Dan Quinn got as mad as he's been since he's been here, and he doesn't get mad, but he said, hey, we're not going to play Where's Waldo here. It got really got tense. McLaurin took the step of asking for a trade and then finally signed for a marketable deal. The problem was, who knows what the injuries were the result of, but it couldn't have helped that he missed all of training camp, because he was selling this. The reason that they didn't want to give him the top dollar was because he's 30 years old. And he kept saying, well, I didn't play that much in my early years at Ohio State, and I've gone 5 years without missing a game. Look at my durability. Well, look at his durability this year. And they don't want to get into this with Laramie Tunsil. They don't want a situation where he's holding out of camp. And even Peters said there was a bit of a learning experience last year, that they don't want to get in that situation. But as far as, the confidence in getting a deal done quickly, Peters is going to stop short of that.
Yeah, I don't want to get into a confidence level thing there, but the talks have been positive. I have a ton of respect for Laramie, not just the player who's outstanding, but the person and the way he's approached everything since we've acquired him, from as a player, as a leader, taking the other guys under his wing, and just being a great overall locker room guy. In addition to the building, treats everyone with respect, the staff, everybody like that. So he's been everything we've asked for. So, and we've had good talks. So I really, it's something, like I said earlier, we really want to get done, and we'll be really happy if it does.
Tunsil is more important to this team right now than Terry McLaurin. Not that Terry McLaurin, when he's healthy, can't be a great player, but the value of having one of those guys at left tackle is huge. And this is underlined by what's going on in San Francisco right now with a former Redskin, Trent Williams. And Trent Williams has a deal that is supposed to pay him, if he plays this year under the deal, which he won't. But if he were to play this year for San Francisco under the deal, he'd make $39 million. $39 million. And just to show you where that stands with non-quarterbacks in the league, there's only a handful of guys who are making that kind of money and not playing quarterback. Where was that list I saw? There are just like 3 or 4 guys total. Here we go. Only behind Chiefs defensive lineman Chris Jones, 49ers defensive end Nick Bosa, so paying somebody on the other side of the line for San Francisco, and Vikings wide receiver Justin Jefferson, who's the best in the league. So $39 million isn't going to happen. He's going to be 38 years old, and John Lynch, the GM of the 49ers, is playing that game as well. He said, quote, he's going to be 38 years old, so there's some things that go into that, but I think we're all on the same page and feel very positive about where that's going. He got a 3-year deal after holding out. He held out in 2024, got a 3-year deal, $82.6 million. They pushed the money to the end thinking, okay, is he really going to make 3 years? Well, it looks like he is, because he was just named to his 12th Pro Bowl last season and was all pro. and you have a quarterback there that you would like to protect, and he's one of the best in the league. He's rated the number 3 tackle in the NFL. So just to tie it in with the Tunsil deal, whatever they work out for Trent Williams, that's got to be in the ballpark there. So Williams had a restructured 3-year deal 2 years ago for $82 million. Got to believe Tunsil's going to be in that ballpark, especially with the value he brings to a team that knows everything is tied to the quarterback and keeping the quarterback healthy. But it's really remarkable the career that Trent Williams has had. He was the first player drafted by Mike Shanahan. Mike Shanahan came to Washington 16 years ago, and you think, wow, this is taking an offensive lineman first. Well, he must be that good. He was a great athlete, and a great player here. A couple times he let them down. He got 2 suspensions for marijuana, and then the way it ended was so. The culture is damn good at Redskins. He had a cyst on his head, which turned out to be cancerous. Didn't like the way the medical staff handled it, like they kind of poo-pooed it. And then he wound up holding out. He missed half of the next season. He reported in time to count as a league year, but then they put him on the non-playing list, or whatever that was, just to punish him. And then they wound up trading him to San Francisco for a 5th-round pick. And now, if San Francisco can't get a deal done, and I think he's got the leverage here. Why would he accept under market value when he knows if he hits the open market, somebody making a push for the Super Bowl is going to pay him. They're going to pay him a lot of money. And with the signing bonus, he's going to collect more than probably $39 million guaranteed. So while he might take a restructured deal and might show some loyalty to San Francisco, I think that Trent Williams is holding the cards, and they don't want to get in that situation with Laramie Tunsil. So Laramie Tunsil, the number one focus for Adam Peters in the offseason, aside, of course, from the draft and free agency and what he's going to do the next few days at the Combine. By the way, and we'll get to this. In fact, let me get to this here. This was Peters on Tim Gribbins, and Tim Gribbins was the director of scouting for the team for 24 years. And, you take him maybe at face value. It does seem to be incredible timing that just before you go into the offseason, Gribbins leaves, because a director of scouting job it's pretty much over when the college football season ends. So there's been a lot of time on this between the end of the season and now, but Gribbins has left and he's gone to Pittsburgh, and this is what Peters said about his departure.
Obviously, it's not orthodox for a college director to leave at this time, so we will have our work to do. But I think in terms of Tim, I really, that was a personal thing for me too. When I was a college director at Denver, I got asked to go to the 49ers, which was my hometown team, and a great man by the name of John Elway allowed me to do that. And so I wanted to pay that forward, and I think Tim has more than earned that, really, with his 24 years of service to us. And so, that certainly is not going to be easy, but I really have a lot of confidence in our staff to make up for the next few months at least to pick up the slack.
Okay, well, it's it's an important deal to Scout Town. Not that it's an exact science, but seems like an odd time to lose the director of scouting, and maybe you just take him on face value on that, or there might be more to it. What it is, I don't know. It just seems odd that the timing works like that, where a scouting director knows, how the calendar works, and to depart like this, and maybe it was mutual. Maybe it was something that they both said, time's up, got to go. Guy who left in this organization for 24 years, that's pretty amazing, because you're going through a bunch of different coaching staffs over that period of time. You want Combine Geek Talk? We got Combine Geek Talk. Where do you hear Adam Peters discuss arm length? And he says, oh, yeah, we could go on and on about arm length. He goes on and on about arm length. Well, this is what you sign up for, I guess, when you become a general manager. And, boy, they got some geek stuff going on over the next few days. The Underwear Olympics don't really even start until tomorrow, where they start timing these guys and weighing them and measuring them. And I guess they're interviewing them now, trying to find out about their character and so forth. So we'll hear Peter's thoughts on that. And Dan Patrick asks a very interesting question. Has the U.S. overtaken Canada as the hockey nation? Interesting. We'll get to that coming up shortly. But we heard a lot of things yesterday regarding what they plan to do in the offseason, the Commanders, in terms of contracts, just to catch you up. They're Adam Peters says it's a priority to get Laramie Tunsil done. And while he didn't specifically say this, he indicated that, yeah, that was a mess last year with Terry McLaurin. It should not have gone down like that, where he missed all of training camp, asked for a trade. They finally got it done before the start of the season, only to see him get hurt when he had spent the offseason telling everybody, hey, I know I'm 30 years old, but I never get hurt, and he got hurt. So they don't want to have that kind of drama with Laramie Tunsil. They want to get that done. Also, Zach Ertz popped up yesterday, indicated that he wants to play a 14th season. He's coming off a torn ACL. He's 35 years old. But I believe if he's healthy and the price is right, they would bring him back. Bobby Wagner reportedly wants to play a 15th year. Could you bring him back? I think you could, but I don't think you could bring him back in the same role. You may remember this, going back to the old days, that Richie Pettibone used to have platoon linebackers. And in particular, Monty Coleman was what they used to call a nickel linebacker. He was more of a pass covering linebacker. Like you bring him in on third down, either to rush the passer or cover a back out of the backfield. He was great at that. He'd been a safety in college, moved up to linebacker, so that made sense. And then Neil Olkowitz, he was the groundhog. He was the guy that you'd put in on first and second down to try to stop the run. They brought in Matt Millen for his last year in the NFL. I think it was year 13 for Matt. He's not a Hall of Famer. Bobby Wagner will be. But he was a guy that you bring in on first and second downs, and that's how he played out his career. So that could be a role for Wagner if he comes back. I think Dan Quinn would like to have him back for his locker room presence, but we saw it was a liability with the back coming out of the backfield. So there's that. But the Tunsil contract extension is something that they definitely want to get done. And also, Peters did not rule out the possibility. I think it's a long shot, and I don't even know why they would even consider it, but bring back Marshawn Lattimore, who'd be due $18.5 million. And, he hasn't been able to stay on the field. He hasn't played that well when he's played, and he just got picked up on a gun charge in the offseason. So I don't see that. I don't see that happening with them this year. You don't have to be a genius to figure that out. But anyway, they got to pass. This is a pass rush deep draft. There are several possibilities that may be there at 7 when the Commanders pick. And so Peters went into what he's looking for in pass rushers and said this. Wait till you hear what he says here about arm length.
Ideally, you want Myles Garrett. That's who you want, but there's only one of those guys walking on the face of the earth. But a lot of those same traits, right? And long, fast, explosive, can turn the corner, can finish, all those things. In terms of guys with shorter arms, and there's a few in this draft that are really, really good players, it's, arm length is, I can go into days on this arm length thing, because every time you measure somebody's arm, it could be 30, 31, 32, 33, just depending on who measures it. So you get a pretty good idea of how long their arms are with that, but you really, how well they play with whatever length they have. Some guys have shorter arms that play with great length and extension all the time. Some guys have really long arms that don't use their length as well. So, it's great to have that length, but it's also how they use it and how it comes out on the tape. And so some guys can excel with shorter arms by doing things differently, but, ideally you always want to have err on the side of a longer person, yeah.
So you want the long arm guys, whatever that means. But, if you can play football, you can play football. Sam Mills he's in the Hall of Fame, and he was a great player in the USFL. Why was he in the USFL? Because he was 5'7". Nobody wanted to take a chance on him. He goes to the New Orleans Saints after the USFL folds. He's great there, all pro. Finishes his career in Carolina, great player there. And unfortunately, he died very young of cancer, I believe. But he was a terrific player and a shrimp. So football players is what you're looking for. And arm length is just one of the things that they look at the combine. And if a guy fails, you go, oh, yeah, we should have known he had short arms. But if he goes someplace else and he's successful, oh, boy, did we miss on him. He had short arms, but we didn't want to take a chance on him. Somebody did. Somebody did that. The other interesting possibility, and this is a possibility, but the fact of the way he addressed it, I think, is something to keep in mind. Brandon Ayuk, he made it pretty clear he wanted to come here. He's a San Francisco guy. He's got history with Peters. More importantly, he played at Arizona State with Jaden Daniels, and he made it very, very clear in the last offseason when he was looking for a contract extension that he wanted to be traded here. Didn't happen. He goes and he gets hurt. Tears his ACL. While he's rehabbing this past season, he left the team. He just left in a dispute and cost himself a lot of money. He's still under control with the 49ers. They still have the rights to him. But the question is, would he possibly come here in a trade? Would they release him? So Peters was asked about Ayuk, and he didn't. It sounds to me, you judge for yourself, but this is Peters answering the question about Ayuk getting a shot here in Washington after the way things have unfolded in San Francisco, and judge for yourself whether there does seem to be, sounds to me like there is sincere interest from Peters.
Brandon Ayuk is a player on another team under contract, so I can't comment on that. Second chances, yeah. I think everybody on earth deserves a second chance. And so with Kinlaw, I mean, that was an interesting one. Kinlaw earned his second chance, and really, he earned every single bit of it. And so I wouldn't kind of call his a second chance, so to speak. I think because I had the familiarity with him and understanding the type of person and player and competitor he is, that helped factor into that decision. But I think he earned every single bit of that by the way he came back from his injuries and everything to be a really, really good player. So in terms of Brandon, love the person, but can't really comment on the player.
For a guy he didn't want to talk about, he spent 49 seconds talking about him. Almost a minute talking about a player he didn't want to talk about. Javon Kinlaw, by the way, is the lineman he's talking about. He had been a San Francisco draft pick, disappointing draft pick, goes to the Jets for a year, winds up here, and that appears to be a very, very good signing by Adam Peters. But it just sounds to me like, yeah, if the situation is right, Brandon Ayuk could wind up here as a receiver in Washington. To Baltimore, and they've got a new head coach for the first time in like 20 years. Jesse Minter, who had been on the staff with John Harbaugh, now replaces John Harbaugh. And he talked to Rich Eisen yesterday about the job as head coach of the Ravens and how he got the job with, it sounds like, a little bit of a blessing from Lamar Jackson, who is going to be the most important person he connects with, even though Minter's a defensive guy. They have to work out a contract extension for Lamar because he's due like $80 million. So they have to restructure the contract so it's a more reasonable $60 million a year. But this was Minter explaining to Eisen how it unfolded, that he landed in Baltimore, back in Baltimore, used to be an assistant there, now head coach, and the connection with Lamar.
At the beginning, there's normal there's an openness to want to learn about me. We did know each other. We crossed over for a couple years in Baltimore. So I think there was, again, like a little bit of a familiarity. Okay, this younger guy, I remember him. We've had a lot of opportunities to talk. I'll try to probably keep a lot of what we say to each other private between the two of us, but I feel like the relationship is off to a great start and headed in a great direction.
So what questions did he have for you that you're willing to make
I think
public?
He was involved in the interview process.
So he was in an interview room with you at one point?
We were on a Zoom.
Okay.
And so that was cool. He wanted to hear my vision, for him, the offense, the team.
What is that that you're willing to share?
Yeah, I think it's a really well-connected team that plays team football, that cares about each other, that plays for each other on the field, an offense that takes advantage of his skill set, but also has plays off of plays. It's a very systematic approach. that we can take some pressure off of him in the run game by handing the ball to Derrick Henry as many times as possible.
You had a big smile on your face as you said his name.
Excited about that.
Right. Right.
And so really just building a system that allows him to thrive and be the MVP caliber player that he's been.
Run more?
I don't know if he needs to run more. I actually think there's times where he can run less. If you build an offense that takes advantage of the under center, the downhill run game, now that opens up a lot of boots and play actions and plays. And then, the great quarterbacks have that ability on the key play to execute the second play. So the first play is maybe not there. It's not the perfect play call. Now he can take advantage of that with his athleticism, his skill set. That's what he's always been able to do.
Yeah.
And will continue to be able to do.
Which is, listen, I understand the sensitivity of this question, or this subject matter with him about running. We're here in Indianapolis where he refused to run purposely. And it made sense. We're just like, hey, you wanted a quarterback? I'm your guy, okay? And Ozzie Newsome and the Ravens were the ones who said, we get it. We're going to trade up in the first round and get that 5th year of contractual control. We believe in you, and we're going to get you up and running, literally and figuratively. But, I mean, he is in this league where the two-way threat, you as somebody who's, built to try and stop that stuff, knows how much of an advantage it would be to you to get him to do both. And the question is how do you do it? Does he want to do it? Do you want to tell your new OC, we have to do it? And that's the question that I'm wondering about.
I think there's high leverage moments where the quarterback's willing to do what he needs to do to win the game or win the play or whatever it might be.
Right.
And then I think there's times where you got to, this is a franchise player. This is a guy you want to be the quarterback for a long, long time.
Yes.
And so there's a health element and a protection element that needs to be in place to where he's not taking some of the hits that he doesn't need to. So I think it's a great balance there. You want him to be what's made him great. I think you look at Mahomes and Josh Allen and all those type of quarterbacks that can make that second play. And so he's certainly up there, in that stratosphere. And again, it's like, can we make the offense help him? And then to where when he does have to do that, he has that opportunity to do that.
That's Jesse Minter, new coach of the Ravens with Rich Eisen, the Lamar Jackson connection, very important. It's not unusual to have a star player in an interview with a head coach being interviewed. I've heard this from high school basketball coaches, that when they're interviewed for a job with the principal, they'll bring in the star player who's returning. You got a guy who's like a junior. That's when the coaches get hired in the spring. And the principal will say, "What do you think? Is this guy? Can you play for him?" So the Lamar thing, I don't think is a big deal. It's just interesting that he was he was part of the process in the hiring. It's not like they didn't know him. He'd been on the staff before with John Harbaugh, and actually had been with Jim Harbaugh with the Chargers. So a lot of Harbaugh connections there. Not a stranger, but that was part of the process. A couple more football things. One, Dan Campbell, coach of the Lions, who had David Blough on his team as a backup quarterback, and now Blough is the offensive coordinator with the Commanders, having never been a coordinator at any level, had been the quarterback's coach last year. Campbell is saying, if he didn't land in Washington, if he didn't stay there as the offensive coordinator, we were going to take him.
I love Blough. I mean, he was one of the guys that I wanted to bring in, and Coach Quinn and those guys went ahead and named him OC, which is smart by them. I think Blough is a young, rising coach in this league. I've been around him firsthand, and he's another one, man. He's sharp. He understands football, he understands quarterback play, he knows the run game. And he's a detail guy, and he's competitive, man. He's very competitive, so I think he's going to do a great job.
So you got the Dan Campbell seal of approval there, and you got the Dan Quinn seal of approval because he elevated him to offensive coordinator from quarterback's coach. UFL is about to launch, and I have no interest in watching UFL games, I must tell you. I love football. I love the NFL. I watch a lot of college football. I'm a season ticket holder to Maryland football. It just renewed. But spring football, no, just can't do it. You need a break. As great as football is, as great as the NFL is, as great as college is, you just need a break from it. But they're doing things that are very, very smart, and they have some rules for the upcoming season They looked at what the NFL did, and the latest is there's not going to be, quote unquote, a push for the tush push ban this year as there was last year. The Packers wanted to ban it. There weren't enough votes. This year, it doesn't even seem to be something that they will consider. There's no team that's going to push to get it out. But they as a league said, yep, we're not going to allow it. It's gone. They also have done something that may spruce up the offense. Offenses will no longer be allowed to punt once they cross the 50-yard line, even if they're pushed back onto their own side of the field due to a sack or a penalty. So that's something that forces you to go for it. You know, if you're at the other team's 45-yard line, you can't punt. Interesting. And field goals of 60 yards or more will be worth 4 points. The statement from Mike Repoli, who is the UFL co-owner, I think he owns with The Rock. Dwayne Johnson, I think, is a co-owner of the league. Says the UFL exists to innovate. If we're not making the game more exciting and fan-focused, we're not doing our job. So it's got to be at least 60 yards. But if you attempt and make a 60-yard field goal, you get 4 points. Now, I heard Tony say something yesterday on PTI, which I would point out doesn't make a lot of sense. He said if you miss a 40-yard field goal, you should have a point taken off the board. No, I don't think so, because the penalty's already there. If you're attempting a 60-yard field goal, that means that you're trying to kick it from your own 50, right? From midfield. A 60-yard field goal is a 50 yards and then 10 yards for the back of the end zone. So a 60-yard field goal is from midfield. If you miss, the other team gets it at midfield. That, to me, is enough of a penalty. And the way these guys kick now, 60-yarders are pretty routine. Not routine, but they're a lot higher percentage than, it used to be for like 40 yards. And as great as Mark Mosley was, and Mark Mosley is the only kicker to have won a in-season MVP, Mosley's career field goal percentage was 65%. You get cut if it's 65%. You better be tickling 80, maybe 85 now, if you want to stay around in the league. So I think those are good innovations by the UFL, even though I really don't have much interest in watching their games. All right, coming up, hockey. Interesting question from Dan Patrick. Has the U.S., with this win over Canada, overtaken Canada as the hockey nation? We'll get to that and more as we continue. It's the Andy Poland Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Poland Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
All right, so maybe we're a little bit carried away with what happened over the weekend with the U.S. Winning the gold medal in overtime over Canada. And maybe we're a little bit too quick to over celebrate it. Certainly it was a big deal last night at the State of the Union, as not the entire team showed up, but much of the team was there with their gold medals, and the president said that Hellebuck was going to get a Medal of Freedom for his performance against Canada. So there was that, but where are we right now as a nation playing hockey? Al Michaels had a pretty good stat. He said that it's now 30% of the league is American players. And he also said that when we had the Miracle on Ice in 1980, it was 8%. Kenny Morrow was one of the star players on the U.S. Olympic team in 1980. He went right from playing in the Olympics in the incredible gold medal game, a gold medal that they won after beating the Soviets to get to the medal game against Finland. He went right to the Islanders because, the Olympics ended in February. Still a bulk of the season left, or a good chunk of it left for the Islanders. Won a cup and then won 3 straight more. So, you can't have a run much better than that. Gold medal followed by 4 straight Stanley Cups. Kenny Morrow had quite a run there. But do you look at what happened and say, okay, have we moved into a spot where it's not laughable for Dan Patrick to have on Jay Henry, who is who would you compare him to? Maybe like a Scott Van Pelt in Canada, and hockey is the big deal there. It's not outrageous for Dan Patrick to ask Jay Onray this question.
Is the United States now the home of hockey?
I don't know about that, but I'll say this. Your women's team is the most dominant force on the planet right now in terms of international hockey. They have beaten the Canadian women, their only real rival, 7 or 8 times in a row, including the gold medal game, which was the only close game of those 7 or 8 games I mentioned. They have been absolutely dominating the Canadians. So shout out to your women's team. They are the current force in international hockey right now.
How would you sum up the overall feeling of Canada yesterday?
Well, here's what I would say, Dan. We were given permission by our federal government to open our bars 2 hours before puck drop at 8 a.m. Eastern time. Anytime Canadians can wake up on a Sunday morning and legally drink at bars, it's going to be hard to make them too depressed at the end of a really good hockey game. I think the majority of the country was pretty drunk by the time 10:30 a.m. Eastern time rolled around. But I think overall, probably a little sadness, Dan. I think, Sidney Crosby didn't even play in the game. And in a lot of ways, it was seen as his last hurrah. You could, one of my colleagues said it best, Sidney Crosby sort of is the face of winning in the National Hockey League over the last couple of decades. And now that's probably Matthew Tkachuk. He's won 2 Stanley Cups and a gold medal in the last 200 or so days. So, not 200 or so days. Dan, it's early in the morning. I'm getting my days mixed up. But 2 years, 2.5 years. That's right. There we go. So, yeah, I think if from an American perspective, this is great for the game. And I don't know if it's going to grow the game anymore, Dan. I think the game is kind of what it is. It's a niche sport in the United States. You and I both know that. You're not talking about hockey. You're not talking about the trade deadline in 2 weeks. I don't think you're having a trade deadline show. But it is great for the sport in the sense that they got over the hump. They were knocking on the door forever. And with this terrific team and this incredible goaltender. Dan, you've got the second coming of Vladislav Tretiak. There, the goalie you beat in the Miracle on Ice. Connor Hellebuyck is otherworldly. 3 Vezinas, a Hart Trophy. Goalies don't win most valuable players in the National Hockey League too often, and that's what Connor Hellebuyck did last year. And on Sunday morning, he won them that game. He was that good. Canada got goalied, as they say in hockey. Canada's goalied other countries. This time, Canada got goalied.
Who came up with goalies standing on their heads?
That term?
Yeah.
That phrase?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, Dan. That's a good question. Foster Hewitt, Bob Cole, Jack Buck. I don't know. It's a great question.
Maybe Garrison Keillor, somebody.
Yeah. Gary Thorne. I don't know. We'll have to go to the tape.
But I heard that, and it's usually novices like me will be, he's standing on his head. Like you want to impress the hockey person that you somehow know what you're talking about.
It's like goalies in general are the catchers of hockey, right? Catchers, they're always a little quirky.
Yeah.
They eventually become either broadcasters or managers, right? They always seem to see the game differently than other baseball players. Goalies are exactly the same in hockey. They become our broadcasters and a lot of times our coaches. They're by far the quirkiest, strangest dudes on the team. And Connor Hellebuyck is just the most amazing thing about a lot of your American players is they're stars on Canadian teams. Brady Tkachuk is the captain of the team that is in the capital of Canada. And Connor Hellebuyck is the best player on the Winnipeg Jets. Canadians love these players, but Sunday was tough. It was a little sad one, Dan. But congratulations to you guys. I think it's an amazing team, and I think it was a great game and great for the Olympics. Great to have the players back at the Olympics.
Yeah, it was fun, and I wonder about this. I was thinking about this earlier with the discussion of the NBA All-Star Game, and we played some of the comments that Reggie Miller had with Dan Patrick about the competition and what he heard from some players about wanting to make the All-Star game competitive again, which it was. At least it survives another year. We'll see how they handle it next year. What if they were to move? I guess this couldn't happen, but what if they were to move basketball to the Winter Olympics and just do away with the All-Star game completely? Kind of like what happened with hockey this year. We didn't have a hockey All-Star game because we had the Olympics, and NHL players were participating in the Olympics, as we saw, and for our purposes here, it was fantastic. They won. And I was talking earlier about what Kevin Durant said, that even though he'll be close to 40 years old when the Olympics are played in Los Angeles in 2028, he wants to play. He's told Grant Hill, the director of basketball operations for Team USA, he wants to play. What if you had the same intensity for basketball with international teams in the Olympics? The momentum of that would carry into the last part of the regular season and right into the playoffs. I think it would be an enormous boost for basketball. It probably can't happen. You could conceivably do it like hockey. These guys, remember this, for as much of a close team as Team USA was, they didn't get together for these Olympics until, a week before. They started play less than a week after the opening ceremonies. They didn't have of course they participate in the off season. In the summers they get together and they compete as a team. But what if you did that in the NBA? It probably wouldn't work. But boy, would that be such a boost for the NBA to watch these guys compete against each other for their nations and then get back to playing and of course takes a lot out of you. And now that it's become more and more competitive, it wouldn't be like the dream team going over there and kind of laughing their way through it because it was so easy. But yeah, that would be just a tremendous thing. In fact, I heard a great story about how dominant we were in '92. I forget who was telling this the other day. But the team was coached by Chuck Daly, and Chuck Daly did a tremendous job with all the egos that he was having to deal with there. And there was the famous game where they played against a team of college all-stars with, guys who were playing at Duke, like Danny Hurley and Chris Webber from Michigan. And Daly made sure that they were going to lose this game. Like, they kept Michael Jordan on the bench most of the game because they knew how competitive Jordan would be. He would refuse to lose. So they wound up losing the game. And Daly wanted that to be in the minds of the players that they could lose. Not that they were going to lose and they weren't at all challenged in any way. But he wanted to make sure that was in their minds. Anyway, they were so good that they would have like these all-night poker games heading into not necessarily heading into games, but during practice time. And so there's like an all-night poker game going on. It's like 7:30 in the morning, and they go, "Hey, guys, we got to get to practice." And so they go off to practice. They leave the poker game right where it is, right there. They walk away from it. And Chuck Daly gets a call while the practice is going on. I don't think they had cell phones then. So somebody from the hotel had called the practice facility. I think it was Las Vegas is where they were. And it said, we need to talk to who's ever in charge of Team USA. And it's Daly. He goes, "I'm practicing now. What do they want?" Well, they say it's really important. So Daly picks up the phone. It's somebody from the hotel. And so, yeah, Coach, we got a problem here. What's that? He goes, "Well, the maids went in to clean up the room, and they saw that there was over $200,000 on the table for this game." And he goes, "Oh yeah, don't worry about it. They're just playing a little poker." So that was a different period of time. Now it's ultra competitive, and the Olympics give you everything you want. In fact, there's a great documentary on Netflix about, and it's a long documentary. If you binge it, it'll take you all day. But it's like a 5-hour doc on how we won in these last Olympics in basketball and how close it was that it didn't happen. Steph Curry saved everybody's bacon by hitting some huge shots. And, Victor Wembanyama in France almost came away with the victory. Speaking of international, this broke this morning. I discussed it. The Commanders played last year in Madrid, and they lost in overtime to Miami, thanks to, in big part, to a missed field goal by Matt Gay. Could have won the game. And the last time they had competed in an international game was against the Bengals in 2016, also in London. So they're going back to London and Tottenham this upcoming season. Don't know who they're going to play. But Dustin Hopkins missed an easy field goal in overtime, and they settled for a tie. So this has not been a great place for them. It hasn't been great for them to go overseas for games. Second time in 2 years, though. Interesting. I think the Jaden Daniels effect is there, that they won't have as many primetime games as they had this past season. There'll be some. It won't be like they'll just disappear. They won't be the average 5-12 season heading into the 5-12 team heading into the next season. But what we saw from this team this past year was not really indicative of what they can be. And I mean, you hope Jaden Daniels gets back to the form he had in 2024, and you hope that there's greater health and they don't lose as many players as they did. But I think that's something that the NFL is going to roll the dice on. We don't get the schedule now until May. It used to come out in April. But we'll find out exactly where these games are going to be placed. We know where they're playing. We know where they're playing. We know the teams that they're going to play, obviously. But we don't know yet exactly the schedule for the games and whether they're going to be placed in prime time. But look at what they had this past year. I think they had, 2 Sunday night games, a Monday night game. They had a Thursday game. They didn't play on Thanksgiving this year. They did play on Christmas Day. I would not be shocked if they're back playing the Dallas Cowboys in Dallas on Thanksgiving. That's always a big ratings grab, whether no matter how the two teams are. So I think they're probably going to be back in that slot. But the whole international picture is changing very much. And touching off this conversation with Olympics that Dan Patrick could actually ask with a straight face to a Canadian broadcaster, has the U.S. overtaken Canada as the hockey country? Interesting. We heard what Mike Tirico did during both the Super Bowl and the Olympics. Heard and saw was tremendous. He did a closing piece that was scripted that he did on TV, but the real skill that he has, the greatest skill that he has, and the skill of those guys who reach that level of broadcasting is they can talk off the cuff in the moment and be brilliant. And so after the U.S. hockey team beat Canada in overtime on Sunday with really no time to prep for this, you certainly no time to script it, no teleprompter, no nothing, Mike Tirico delivered in 60 seconds.
Because of a drought that almost lasted the half century, those teams are revered. They are held on to forever. And what happened today doesn't take away from the greatness of those teams or the meaning that those teams have in U.S. hockey. But what you saw today was the build of a generation, inspired perhaps by that team that lost in 2010 in Vancouver to the Sidney Crosby golden goal in overtime. Or the team where TJ Oshie had all those shootout goals in 2014. That's when these guys were doing what you're doing, watching on TV. And they were young, and they were living the dream. So for all the young people out there, not just the hockey, but all the Olympics you've watched, those dreams are formed now. Go chase them and go get them. Because our country loves sports, and it brings us together unlike anything else. And if you didn't know that, and if you haven't been watching the last 2 weeks, you saw it in Team USA hockey, winning the gold over their arch rival Canada here in Milan to wrap up these 25th Olympic Winter Games.
Again, right off the cuff, brilliant as he was in the Super Bowl, as he was throughout the 2 weeks of the Olympics, which he hosted right from the Super Bowl. And, they say game recognizes game. And in my opinion, Scott Van Pelt is the most talented person at ESPN. He's had an amazing rise there, started out as a golf correspondent, and, modestly will tell you that the reason he got the job is because he knew Tiger Woods. Well, there's more than that. People saw things in him. He became a SportsCenter anchor. He hosted the golf coverage. He has now been elevated to host the pre- and post-game programming for the NFL, which is going to take a giant leap forward as they host the Super Bowl this upcoming year. And so when you hear someone like Scott Van Pelt, who understands the skill that's involved in this, talk about Mike Tirico, you really got to pay attention to what he said. And this was SVP on the podcast that he does with his TV sidekick, Stanford Steve. And I think he expressed it with, and nobody likes false modesty. I don't. I don't. If you're good at what you do, you should be able to say you're good at what you do, and he is. So I think he puts this into great perspective and gives you an understanding from someone who is as skilled or close to being as skilled to Mike Tirico as to how hard the job was and what Tirico has been able to pull off in the past month.
All I can tell you in watching him reach whatever place he's at is that it's arguably a place no one in our business has ever been, truly. And I say that with respect to someone like Jim Nantz, for many years would call the Final Four and then the Masters in the same week. Pretty good week. To call a Super Bowl and then go to host the Olympics, and then as the Olympics are coming to a close, have a moment as brilliant as he had, the profession cannot be done any better than that. It is the height of the craft. It is the absolute zenith of what you would aspire to be professionally. I say this, and I don't want this to sound tacky. Please correct me if it does, because you're my guy.
No offense.
I've done this for a while, and I feel like I hear it in my head. I don't want it to sound this way, but I'm just going to say it. I feel like I'm as good as anyone out there that does this when it comes to the ability to think and talk in moments, to give you a sense of what something feels like. I take pride in my ability to do that. I've had some moments in my career where, all right, this is it.
Mm-hmm.
Be calm, be measured, do a good job. I believe I can. And I rarely, if ever, watch someone and think, that's something beyond my ability. Mike Tirico, I marveled at that man. The ability in that moment yesterday to deliver not just the perfect message, but the perfect tone, to deliver it with a sense of just hope that's not false, and words that land so powerfully with so many people. I'm so proud of my friend. I'm in awe of the ability of the man to reach a place in the profession that is just beyond, honestly, anything I've ever seen. And I say that with respect to Costas, Jim McKay, anyone that's done that role as well. I don't know anyone who's been this versatile, that's been able to say, I'm as good a play-by-play guy as there is. I'm as good a host as there is, and I did all of it in a 2-week span. Just perfection, man.
Absolutely. Unbelievable and so well put by Scott. And I'm in an age where I have pretty much seen the entire network career of Bob Costas, who's now semi-retired, Brent Musburger, who's now in his 80s. He really had a career before he became a network broadcaster. He was a columnist in Chicago. He was a writer. The famous picture of Joe Namath sitting by the pool before the Super Bowl, there's Brent Musburger sitting there. He's got a tape recorder in his hand. He's making the transition to radio, but he's a newspaper guy at that point. And I remember his first emergence was in the NBA Finals, 1975, I believe, when the Bullets played. I think that's the first time I heard of him anyway, when the Bullets played the Golden State Warriors and were swept in one of the big upsets. He did that series with Oscar Robertson, transitioning to play-by-play, and then the following year he's the host of the NFL Today, which he did incredibly well. I mean, he was outstanding at play-by-play, and he was outstanding in the studio. There's no question about that. Same with Costas doing baseball. And Costas may be the smoothest studio host of all time and mixing in humor and all that. Marv Albert, a tremendous play-by-play guy. Never really did a lot of studio stuff, did some for baseball, but not at the level that Mike Tirico did. Jim McKay, tremendous studio host, and maybe had the most incredible moment in a studio with a sporting event when he had to announce to the nation that 9 Olympic Israeli athletes had been killed. They're all gone. And he knew in a different era when there wasn't social media, where there were no cell phones, the family was finding out. People who had, family of some of the athletes, and there was at least one Israeli athlete that I know of had gone to high school with my aunt in Cleveland. And his family was probably getting the news for the first time. Those things are important in history, but everything evolves. And Mike Tirico, as I've said before, has had the advantage of learning from those guys. He actually got the Bob Costas scholarship when he was at Syracuse. So there's been a torch handed down years and years from the greats of the past, but it reaches this point where someone who has the credentials and who has the skills that Scott Van Pelt has, where he can say, hey, I'm pretty good at what I do. And he shouldn't have any hesitation to say that, because he is. He's great at what he does. But I'm pretty good, and this guy has taken it to another level. There's nobody else in this space. He stands alone as the best. And he's right. And Mike has been great at everything he's done, and he's had a career that has had steps along the way. He was a Sports Center anchor. He got a chance to do play-by-play first, like Thursday night college football, and now he's the voice of the highest-rated primetime show on television as doing Sunday Night Football, replacing Al Michaels, all those things. And this will be regarded as one of the great sports broadcasting feats anyway in history, going right from the Super Bowl, where he goes and he does the game and hosts a pre-Olympic show from the field, hops on a plane, and starts 2 weeks of coverage, and does it in such a spectacular way. It's so good to hear Scott and what he said, and really enjoyed the work both of them do, but specifically the work that Mike did in the last couple of weeks. That'll do it for me. I'll be back here tomorrow morning, 9 a.m.